It's just for you. You know, every time we have this conversation, you know, we focus on the rest of the world, and I think that having been in Australia for as long as we have with the Sheraton on the Park, and I think that having that Sheraton presence in, you know, arguably the most important market in Australia, that's created consumer recognition and customer recognition with meeting planners. And as the Sheraton brand has grown, that's given us a great basis. On the back of the Sheraton brand, of course, we've got 4 Points by Sheraton, and then adding in a few Westins over the years. So with a complement now of 11 hotels in Australia, it's a great base. We've got a great local operating team. We have a great local development team. And I think in a market like Australia, you got to have someone in the local market who understands the people, understands the dynamics. And frankly, I think that our patience and our focus on the market is really beginning to play off. And I think you're going to see us add, you know, quality assets for the Sheraton brand, for the 4 Points brand, and for the Westin brand in Australia, you know, at the clip of kind of 1 or 2 a year over the next few years. So we feel really good about Australia as a market for us.
Interesting, over the last few years we've been talking about emerging markets and, you know, where you're growing, and particularly with China and other parts of Asia. But some of your classic markets are really blossoming again now: Australia, Thailand, and parts of Europe and the US.
When I sit and look at our global growth, I think I always describe it much the same way as we structure our own investment portfolios. You got to have a balance. If you put all your eggs into one basket, if you put all your eggs into the emerging markets, and all of a sudden you get a dip, then you're going to get caught short. So I think that having a balanced approach, and Australia being an established, mature market, but yet having the benefits of so much of that emerging market capital and travel. I mean, I think that you look at our presence in China, right, with 130 hotels in existence, with the Sheraton brand name being as strong as it is, with another 50 or 60 hotels under construction. As Chinese capital moves out of China into resource-rich economies, Australia being a good example, guess what? Those guys are all SPG members. They're all looking for brands that they're familiar with, and candidly, you know, they find their way to our hotels in Australia, both as tourists and also as business travelers. So everything's kind of clicking. All the pieces are coming together. We've got great product on the ground. We've got great domestic positioning. All of the incoming traffic coming in from within the region is very familiar with our brands and our loyalty program. So far so good. It's working really well.
We heard the investment forum in Berlin last year. You were one of the only hotel chains to announce any form of growth. What's the news for you this year?
I think the news for us this year on a global basis is that 2013 was our highest number of signings of new deals since 2008. So if you look at the world economic turmoil that occurred, if you will, in 2008 and 2009, we're now back to the same levels of signings that we had then. What I like about the 152 deals that we signed is it was a good mix. 4 Points was at the top of the list as far as number of deals we signed, followed by Sheraton, followed by a Loft, followed by Le Méridien and Westin. So it was a really, really good mix. A mix of franchised versus managed, and geographically the US or North America was high up there, China was way up there, Asia Pacific was our third largest market from a growth perspective. So just, you know, all really solid. When I also think about the fact that we signed 75 change of ownerships and renewals, so not only are we bringing in a record number of new owners, we have a record number of existing owners who are saying, we'd like to stay with the system. So those two things, you know, it's very gratifying for us as a company to have that kind of growth. And I think when we look at growth, the quantity of growth is obviously really, really important to us and to our shareholders. The quality of that growth is equally, if not more important. And whether it's Australia or Asia Pacific or everywhere else in the world, we just feel really good about the hotels that we're bringing into the system and lifting the quality of our portfolio as each year passes.
Looking at a good mix then this year of new builds and conversions at the same time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that when we look at the emerging markets, it's mostly about new build. But I have to tell you, in a market like India, where, you know, 4 or 5 years ago it was all about new build, what we're seeing now is an awful lot of people, individual investors or developers, folks who made money perhaps in other forms of real estate or in other forms of commerce, built a hotel because they said, you know what? Business is so good, the economy is growing so well, we'll build a hotel and we'll come up with a brand name and we'll run it. We're now seeing people in India who built hotels 3 or 4 years ago and ran them as independents or under lesser brands, coming to us and saying, you know what, we'd like to be a part of a more well-established brand. So even in the emerging markets, we're beginning to see a bit of a flip. So I think one of the skill sets for us is we need to be able to adapt how we approach a market. We need to be good at renovations, we need to be good at adaptive reuses, we need to be good at conversions. And I think we've fine-tuned that skill set, so candidly we can adapt ourselves to changing market trends.